All right. Hello, YouTube. All two of you out there. Thanks for stopping by. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it with our episode. So stay tuned. Hello, fellow Galactic listeners. I'm Aaron Hooligan, and this is WSTR Galactic Public Access, a Star Wars podcast. Welcome to episode 222. We hope you and yours are well, and with everything crazy going on, we want to continue to be a platform that promotes positivity, life, and hope. And of course, Star Wars. But today we are going to be talking about fandoms, particularly Marvel fandoms versus Star Wars fans. But of course, I cannot do this alone. We've got a special guest today, Garrick Enns, longtime listener, first-time guest. Welcome to the show, Garrick.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thanks for stopping by. And helping me with this matter, we have Mr. Todd Hoffman.
What's up, everyone?
Glad to have you back.
Oh, yeah.
The girls have the night off. It's the boys in the house. So Todd,
Boys night.
Todd, go ahead and tease that news.
All right. So we have the golden rings.
Ooh.
Next up, not always easy being a good guy. And finally, I know him. So those are our three news items. So stay tuned for that. But without any further ado, we are going right into the main topic. All right, Garrick, you're a special guest. So we ask all our guests this question. How the heck did you get into Star Wars?
If I could be into Star Wars before birth, I probably would have been.
Right.
It's probably the first movies I even saw. Like, I don't even remember the first time even watching them, and don't know my first reaction to Empire and all that. So, we had the VHSs when I was a kid. I'm a 90s baby, so had those. Loved it from like first watch, obviously, and so had all the toys when we were kids, and it's just been basically a lifelong passion. So it's been awesome.
Well, and you had a couple older brothers too.
Yes.
So that also probably helped a little bit.
So me
right?
and my two older brothers. Oh yeah. Plenty of the action figures and stuff, and Lego sets and more Lego sets. And so it's been me and particularly one of my brothers, Daniel. We talk about Star Wars often. There'll be times where we just have ideas or whatever and talk back and forth about stuff, and then but yeah, we all love it. So we all go see the movies together and stuff. So it's been a lifelong thing for me. So
awesome. Very cool. Mm-hmm. Well, obviously we talk Star Wars as well. And you're like,
oh yeah,
hey, we should talk about this thing between Marvel fans and Star Wars fans. I'm like, all right, this is like we have this thing where it's like we get on the chat and like, okay, we got to save this for podcast. We can't be talking about this right now.
Yeah, really. Save that gold.
Yeah, save that gold, right? So one of the things you were mentioning is that you recently did a lot of rewatch of the Marvel universe, like on the old Biz Plus. And so what was some of your observations from that? They're like, hey, I'm noticing this thing.
Yeah, so I actually like the whole phase like 2 and 3 I had never seen before.
What were you doing?
I was not super into Marvel because I went right when Dark Knight came out. Right, it was right when Marvel was just kicking off, and so I was super into Dark Knight, and then the Marvel movies just kind of seemed like second fiddle.
Right. Okay.
But obviously, as they got better, I really wasn't into it. I was just like, okay, whatever. But yeah, so I watched it just recently and I loved it. Like all of phase 2 and 3 are so good. And so I have a couple friends that were big Marvel fans, some Star Wars fans too. And they like love Marvel, loved every movie as far as I know. And it just seemed like Marvel like couldn't do any wrong. And I was like, geez, like they have an awesome fan base, where Star Wars is like, anything that comes out is like, why did they do this? They should have done this. That's so horrible. Right. So it's like, no.
Well, yeah.
Just love the thing a little more. But so I was like, why are we so critical, or are we too critical or whatnot? So That's what I brought
Okay.
up the topic with you.
Well, let's unpack it. So, do you think, well, like right out the gate here, is it the gap between the movies for Star Wars that possibly caused the dissension in the ranks, if you will?
Yeah.
So we have two gaps. For Star Wars, we have two gaps, right? So I'm an 80s baby, so I had 85 or 83 to 99 was one break, and then you have essentially 2005 to 2015 is the other break, and so you have these kind of large breaks where Marvel, essentially Iron Man comes out and it hasn't stopped until COVID.
Right.
I mean,
But then everything stopped.
right. Then everything stopped. But like from a movie perspective, it was pretty much from Iron Man's entry point to pretty much 2020 from a movie, like it was all Marvel. The gas was on. So do you think that has to do something with it a little bit?
I think that's probably the biggest part. Is because once you build that anticipation, then something comes out and it's looked at under a microscope because it's the only thing you have. And especially so you come in like being around for the originals, like I'm sure Empire and Return of the Jedi were like super scrutinized because it's literally the only thing. I guess there's some books and stuff, but yeah, especially the prequels, like the first Star Wars in 15 years. So it's like it's on such a pedestal already. But then whatever the movie is, it's like everyone just brings it down because they're like, oh, I thought they were going to do this and I thought they were going to do that.
Right.
But yeah, that gap is definitely huge because then the second gap too, where now it's Disney and it's got major budget and all the cool toys that Disney has, and even more propaganda from all the years of Star Wars. So, but yeah, Marvel, they just kept cranking out movies.
Again, I mean, but Marvel is Disney as well. So there's not, you can't, that's one of the things that like, oh, Marvel's different. It's like, well, no, it's still owned by the ears.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Aaron, what do you think?
Well, Todd, I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
Because
Aaron, thank you.
There's a saying that I think is mostly true, that you're not really a Star Wars fan unless you hate Star Wars. And sure. I think for a while it's because probably has to do with that big gap from, what was it, 1983, 85?
83 to 99, basically. Yes.
Yeah, you have this big gap where this kind of culture bomb drops and just changes the landscape of movies and fandoms forever. It's before the internet. This whole thing is kind of treasured and prized, and what keeps fandoms alive during that part of history is conventions, fan clubs, I don't know, book clubs, just like discussion groups
pen
around
pals. Pen pals.
Yeah, it's all kind of it's all kind of fragmented, but and so you kind of congregate around these kind of tentpole events where this movie came out, or this Ewok movie is on TV, or a new book came out.
Right. Yeah.
And there's no real way to kind of all collect together unless you're taking part in these kind of fan events. And so to get to the point where you're participating in these fan events, you have to be a pretty diehard fan. So you have a lot of attachment to it. And so I would say because of that, it's kind of a self-selecting group where if you're going to call yourself a part of the Star Wars fandom, you have to be, at least at that time, you have to be particularly committed to it. And so when 1999 or 1997 starts rolling around, you get the special editions. There's some griping about some of the changes that they made, but also like, oh, they put some new special effects in, they polished it up a little bit. That's cool. And it's all leading up to 1999, Y2K, end of life as we know it, but we're getting one last Star Wars.
That's right. Before the world ends.
It's just a boiling point for all expectations that Star Wars fans at that time put on the movie. And then also right around that time, you have kind of the birth of early widespread internet culture where you have YouTube popping up a few years later. Before that, it was like a bunch of people just hosting their own videos on their websites, and it's kind of spreading by word of mouth and forums and things like that. So it's starting to kind of congeal together, but not quite yet throughout the whole prequel era. And then right around the end of that, you just have a few years until Marvel. And so by the time Revenge of the Sith comes out, the internet's a much more widespread phenomenon. Star Wars fandoms are starting to be able to basically have this kind of continued nonstop conversation about Star Wars and what it means. And so,
and then it goes away.
It does. It goes away. We have no more Star Wars for another, 7 years. Till it's bought out by Disney, and then a few more years after that till we get Force Awakens. So you have this kind of disconnected family of Star Wars fans, and they've all got their own strong opinions about everything, and they're just kind of like getting squeezed into this internet thing and trying to figure it out. And right when it starts all settling to what we all are comfortable with, Marvel comes out with Iron Man, the start of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And in a lot of ways, the Marvel fandom kind of developed in that ecosystem that was carved out by not just Star Wars fans, but a lot of fans of media empires, I guess, from the before the internet age. You've got your you got your Trekkies, you've got your Pokemon fans, you've got all these different fandoms that are trying to shapeshift into this new internet format, and Marvel fans are there right at the beginning. So I would say it cost a lot less to get into the Marvel fandom than it did to become a Star Wars fan back in the dark ages. And I was born 94. I got no ground to stand up, but that's just what I'm seeing from the outside looking in. So because the barrier of entry into the Marvel fandom is a lot lower than it was to be a Star Wars fan, and the very idea of criteria to be a fan is a whole ball of wax. It's a separate conversation, but
that's a separate conversation for a different day.
Let's say
that's a story for a different day.
Let's say to feel connected to a part of the Star Wars community, it took a lot more back then than it did to be a Marvel community. And so pretty much like the bed was made for them to, just go in and sleep on. So because of that, you're going to have a wider selection of people that are going to be a part of the Marvel fandom, including Star Wars fans, because they're not mutually exclusive. And so you have a lot more moderate people, a lot more reasonable people, a lot more just everyday Joes that maybe don't even care about Marvel that much per se, and they care a lot about other things too. And that might be a reason why, just taking a look at it, the Marvel fandom is a lot more, let's say, well-rounded and mellow compared to the Star Wars fandom. And also Star Wars is just very old. It's like going on 50 years soon. So you have a much wider spread of people who like entered into the fandom at different times and who all value different things. To make it to make it a metaphor, I guess it's like Star Wars is like the landed gentry, like the old royal family, and the Marvel fandom is like everybody in the village. And some of those people from the village end up in this royal family, but it's crazy. It's a weird spread.
Yeah, and like I was just at the Marvel exhibit at the Science and Museum of Science and Industry, but I didn't really realize, or kind of did. I can't remember, but like Marvel is even older than Star Wars, which was crazy. But it was exclusively the comics, and so it took them forever to actually make movies and stuff. But so they it's crazy that they have been around longer. So maybe they have had more time to build even more of a fan base
Well,
in that
but
more secular spot. But I don't know.
I'm sure there's some comic book nerds out there like,
Yeah.
that ain't my Iron Man. Just as they're like,
sure.
that ain't my Luke Skywalker, hashtag whatever. But
Right.
I think what Aaron is saying is that from a pop culture perspective, it was very accessible
Totally.
to anybody. And that's where it's like, I think those gaps do hurt Star Wars a little bit, because it's like, if you're a 90s kid, right, or whatever, and you like, well, I didn't know the old movies, I just know the prequels, and so it's kind of juxtaposed, and oh yeah, actually you're seeing the beginning and that, so like there's this little thing that's weird. Marvel has that a little bit because it does jump around, but I think one of the things that's interesting of what Marvel has done, I mean, some movies, I know, I do remember Matrix Reloaded had a little thing at the end, but it wasn't very common to have something at the end of a movie, right?
Mhm.
It's just credits, like obviously movies progress too, because before, like, you watch some of the old Walt Disney like cartoons, it's all credits at the beginning. It's like, here's everybody that made the movie, and it's like some long song, and you're like, okay, when we get into the movie,
Yeah.
and now where movies are, and that's a whole thing with the Actors Guild and blah blah blah, whatever. But like now, Marvel, movies are like cut right into it, and sometimes they don't even show the title. The title's like at the end of the movie, and it's a totally different way of viewing movies now. But like essentially, at the end, now you have like a bazillion people because there's 7,000 effects house, and so you have to cram all these things in. But we're staying to the end because there's something at the end credits, and Marvel kind of baked that into almost pretty much every movie. There was something that led, like a little Easter egg or a little rabbit, dangled a carrot and said, okay, here's something, here's a little tease for something next. And I think that also kind of created this almost culture of stirring of like, oh, I definitely want to see the next one. And I don't even care. It's, whoever, this looks good, What do you guys think about that? Like that little Marvel ending?
I mean, you get pumped for the movie after the movie's already happened. It's like, who else has that?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I'll sit in the theater for an extra 10 minutes just to see a 2-minute scene or less, a 30-second scene. Like, yeah, they're geniuses for doing that in every movie, for sure.
Yeah, it's a clever way to turn what we're familiar with, self-contained movies that have their own story, and maybe you'll have sequels and prequels and stuff, but to already just before you've even done absorbing the events of the first movie, you're already kind of tied in and building expectation for the next movie, where it's just a connected strand going from movie to movie to movie. And it's a clever way to do it. So much so that it's become, if any other movie that isn't a Marvel movie has a post-credit scene, we call it like a Marvel post-credit scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And but before that, you occasionally you'd have like a post-credit scene where maybe it's like a extra joke or something.
Joke. Yeah.
Or I'm thinking of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where they just they mock the concept of staying through the credits to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But besides that, you might get like a to be continued at the end. But
right.
that itself is using movies as a medium in themselves to create this network of movies instead of just one self-contained unit. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely universe building too.
Yeah, and I think kind of what you're going back earlier, Aaron, where it's like it's kind of an event. So you're already seeing these people. You're already at the movie with your friends or whatever, and you're like, well, we gotta go see this next one together. And so it kind of like almost establishes like an event where it's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna go see this one. And I think that's also kind of gives a little bit more, like, okay, yep, I'm ready for the next one, whatever it is. I don't care who it is, So
It's also just like comic books, because they will connect events like that all the time, where you might be reading an issue of let's say X-Men, and Wolverine comes back and he's talking about this whole adventure that he's been on, that you've been reading every issue of X-Men, but it's not talked about at all. It's not shown at all. And you'd be like, wait, you were with who doing what? And you got to go to like a whole nother line of X-Men comics to figure that out. Or you could just ignore it and just keep going with the X-Men line, and it'll make sense, but it's just a little less rich. We don't really have that with Star Wars. It's like everything builds on everything else, and nothing is optional because it all ties in together. And so when one of those links in the chain is a little weak, we freak out, because like the whole thing could come crumbling down.
Right.
Yeah.
And comic book fans are used to that. Like, oh, that was awful. It'll probably get retconned or written out. Like, just write it out. It's okay.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I was saying about the oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Like what you're saying about the chain, like it seems like we have one chance to get this right, and whereas in the comic book world you might have a chance to like write it out or do something and just have more stories upon stories. Whereas like Star Wars, like there's 11 movies and 9 saga movies, so if like you mess something up, like that's it, and you can't go back and ever change it, and that's the whole that's the legacy forever.
Yeah. Well, two things with comics is, first, like you said, Aaron, like it might say, even in the issue, it'll say, have like a little asterisk in the bubble and say, see issue or see this thing. And you're like, oh, okay. If I want to read that, I can go get that comic and understand what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's like an offline. You're like, oh, okay, let me go check that out. And so the other thing is like, with comics, they rewrite the story 1,000 times. I mean, I know it's not, we're doing Marvel, but like DC, how many times have we seen Batman's parents die? Like a bazillion. Like I just like, we see the origin story, like, and there's different, like with Marvel, you're constantly redoing the characters. And so I think part of that, I mean, obviously if you're not too deep in comics, it's always constantly being rewritten. So that's where I think, like that you have all these decades of source material with Marvel, but we only have the movies with Star Wars. Like Star Wars movies drive all the other material. Do you think that makes a difference? Because like you were saying, Garrick, like Marvel's been around a lot longer than Star Wars, but why do you think that doesn't matter? All that reference material doesn't matter to the current like MCU.
It seems like the MCU, like Marvel before 2008, was almost like irrelevant. Like, yeah, you knew the characters and stuff, and I'm not a Marvel historian or longtime reader or anything, so I don't know if Endgame was like the whole story of all the phases was all in the comics, or so. I'm sure parts of it, yeah, but like it seems like Marvel basically started in 2008, not 1938 or whatever it did. And so and everyone's there at the beginning and it ends in 2019 for Endgame. So it's like there's one chunk of time and it's in this internet world like we were talking about. So everyone can come in and do reaction videos and stuff like that. So you're all sharing in like this huge experience over 11 years or so.
In real time.
In real time, yeah.
And
Star Wars has those 3 generations basically, because the original generation is, I mean, like age-wise and story-wise, it's back then, and then us '90s kids had the prequels, and then like the super young kids have the sequels. So, and so like the sequels are for kids, or then I'm sure you, Todd, were like, oh, prequels are. I'm sure there's some people that are like, oh, prequels are whatever, like it's not like the originals.
Right.
So you're not sharing that, and like the Star Wars fan base probably, and it does encompass a much larger like group of ages that are watching the movies and stuff and are still into it, I think.
But how do you think? Okay, so how do you think Marvel roped in the casual fan?
It's a good question.
How did they do it? How did they do it? Like they have, again with Star Wars, it's like, okay, we have this generation, but we're going to tell the pre-story, that when George is like, okay, we're going to tell kind of an origin story, right? Now, Marvel has all this source material. How the heck did they go, okay, well, we're going to build out this whole universe and rope everybody? Like, how did they rope them in?
Yeah. This is just my opinion, I guess, but
Of
like
course,
it seems
yes.
like
Yeah.
it's obviously Star Wars is super popular, but compared to Marvel, it seems way more like geeky and nerdy because it's talking about all the Force and all these things, Jedi and stuff. But like Marvel happens in like New York City and all this stuff. And Tony Stark lives in Malibu, and he's just like a guy in a iron suit fighting another dude that's not even a superhero or whatever. Like, doesn't matter. And yeah, you can get into all the galaxy stuff with Thanos and all these other planets, which is very Star Wars-esque.
Right.
But it seems like, I don't know, Star Wars went down more little rabbit holes, and like you can go even deeper with Old Republic and all the other books and stuff where, I don't know, to me, Marvel seems more like it can reach that casual fan that doesn't want to dig too deep into that fandom, but just like stay at the surface and really just enjoy the movies. That's just my humble opinion.
Okay. Aaron?
I think it goes back to that first trailer for Iron Man where, it's 2007, 2008, where they picked a very good Marvel superhero to start with, where he doesn't have this kind of...
And they play Black Sabbath. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, they're playing...
Yeah,
they're playing
Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
And it's just very simple. He's getting blown up in Afghanistan somewhere, builds his own... He's this billionaire genius, builds his own iron suit, and just uses that to go save the day. It's like it's one of the most simplest Marvel heroes that you could come to understand.
So simple.
Besides like Spider-Man, but even that, it's like they had the Sam Raimi films, and those not part of the cinematic universe. But if they were to start with just building this cinematic universe one brick at a time, what's the first brick that they lay? Iron Man, just because he's super easy for anyone who doesn't even know about the Marvel universe to understand. And I really do think that was a brilliant move, because you have somebody as charismatic as Robert Downey Jr. Portraying him, and even before Iron Man, he was a big A-list star. And it's flashy, it's big budget.
Well,
they knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Well, he's an A-list star that had a checkered past as well.
Mm-hmm.
So for him, he's coming out of this like, I'm trying to restart my career as well. It's like it's a gamble. It's a gamble, because Iron Man is like technically a B. You would say a B probably character. He's not, your number one choice, but all of a sudden it just clicks, and you have a gentleman that this kind of segues into my next question is like Jon Favreau directs Iron Man. So now you have Jon Favreau coming to Star Wars now with Disney Plus. And do you think Disney Plus is helping Star Wars fan, or helping the community grow bigger with Mandalorian? Like getting that casual fan, going back to the kind of casual fan.
Yeah, I definitely think so. It's more. There's more content. It's more accessible too. I mean, a lot of people have Disney Plus. It's Disney, so like a lot of people have that. A lot of people are watching, and then I think the most obvious thing, but it's kind of cliche, is like it's just good. It's awesome Star Wars.
Right.
Whereas like the sequels,
that's so cliche, Garrick. Why do you say that? Yeah,
these things are just good.
Right.
The sequels are one side or the other. Like there's barely any middle ground of like, oh, I guess they're okay. Like it's either they're great or they are horrible. Whereas like Mandalorian is so much like it's a lot of good. And there's some nostalgic stuff too. So I mean, I can go on for hours about how great Mandalorian is, but then even just the shows too that are now coming out with the end of Clone Wars, but then Bad Batch and all the new shows coming out too. It's just building more content, more availability for things for fans to watch instead of just relying on a movie every bunch of years.
Yeah. So we have a renaissance and with Disney buying Star Wars, and they say, okay, we're bringing the band back together. We got this property. Disney owns it now, and we're going to make new movies. And everyone rejoices like, yay. So, and like right out of the gate when Force Awakens hits, 2015, it makes like $4 billion. It's just, and again, Disney bought Lucasfilm for $4 billion, and literally this movie makes it back. And you're like, could do no wrong. Mm-hmm. Then The Last Jedi comes out, and you thought, I don't know, there's a lot, just to say, just Twitter itself exploded, and every other social media kind of exploded with it. But technically, honestly, like the casual fan may have went to saw Last Jedi and whatever, or it was in the internet, the dark web, where things just went astray, and then just like I didn't want to bring up the news because I'm going to bring it up now. JJ comes back here. JJ opens a can of worms and says, I don't think that there's nothing more important than knowing where you're going. End quote. JJ, and the headliner is like, JJ Abrams reflects on Star Wars when it's critical to have a plan.
You don't say.
So again, we probably, as a Star Wars fans, as a Star Wars community, as a Star Wars podcast, you can talk about nauseum about this, but how do you not have a plan for this $4 billion franchise that you bought, and you don't have a plan for the 3 movies that you're going to make? Garrick, do you have a...
I have no earthly idea how they did not come up with a better plan for that. I mean, you're given just a gold mine.
You're literally given the keys, right? You're like, here you go, Garrick, what is your plan for 3 movies?
Yeah, and then they just come out with I don't know. It's crazy, but I don't know how they couldn't think of a good plan or any plan. They just were improvising maybe the biggest movies of the last century. Like, how do you just do that by improvising it? I don't know. It's crazy.
I have an idea. I don't know if it's the right one. It probably is not.
Okay.
But
okay.
I would have to say George Lucas was smart. He bilked Disney for all that they were worth. And he's like, if you want Star Wars, $4 billion. And they're like, okay, we'll do it. And they reach deep into the checkbook for that
Uncle
one.
Bob writes the check. Uncle Bob writes the check. There you go.
And he goes home, has a stiff drink, and he realizes, oh God, what have I done? Because for all the innovation that Disney can have from time to time, Disney is still at this point a conservative company. They don't like a lot of change. They want to please their investors and make sure all their quarterly reports all their ducks are in a row with that. And so they realize, okay, we have to get a return on this huge record-setting investment as soon as possible. And so they go to Lucasfilm and they're like, "Hey, how quickly can you get a movie out?" They're like, 3 years." Okay.
You
Well,
got one.
yeah. We'll tread water till then, but hurry up, please. And so they're focused on, let's just get one movie out the door as soon as possible. Make it good so we can make some money, but we need to get this trilogy rolling. Let's just go. And they're like, okay. So they get J.J. Abrams, they get everybody else involved with that. And to their credit, I think they had this impossible task to pull off where they needed to please all the old fans and say, basically send the message that, Star Wars is in good hands. Disney's going to take care of them. This is a good thing for Star Wars. And they also needed to rope in some new people and say, you haven't watched Star Wars before? Well, you don't need to see anything else prior. Um, you probably are aware of some Star Wars things just through pop culture osmosis, but we'll get you up to speed real quick. Come into the water. It's fine. And so,
right.
And I think they managed to do that with The Force Awakens. I don't have a lot of criticisms for it. I think it tried to pull off the impossible, which was like, please everybody. If we got to consider it a soft reboot if you have to, but it still managed to be a good movie. And they're like, okay, we did it. We made a ton of money. We got this franchise off to a start. We pleased our investors. We pleased the fans. What next? Oops, we don't have a coordinated media strategy. And I think it's a result of trying to repeat what Marvel is doing with the cinematic universe, but not really understanding how it worked. It's almost a bit of like cargo cult thinking. And what I mean by that is cargo cult thinking refers to this, I think, Polynesian tribal society that during World War II they witnessed things like an American airstrip that was built, and they were like taking off and landing and unloading supplies, and they saw like a radio tower, like they were calling in planes, and the planes would land and give them supplies. They really wanted the supplies. So when the Americans left, they built their own airstrip, built their own radio tower. It's all out of wood and bamboo and things like that. And none of it worked. None of it was functional, but they still went through the motions expecting the same result, that if they put a guy up in this kind of wooden and canvas tower and he spoke into a thing that looked like a radio and he had a thing on his head that looked like headphones, an airplane would come and deliver supplies. And I think that was kind of the same thinking that Disney had, is like they wanted the same results as a Marvel Cinematic Universe, but they didn't know how to get there. They were still kind of in the old school way of thinking where before the internet, you had these big movies that would come out and that's all you got. So you, if you wanted more Star Wars, too bad. And they didn't have the scrutiny that the internet era has. They didn't have the kind of networked fandom that exists now, where you can get criticism and conversation about Star Wars in real time. Not really a thing.
Right.
They didn't really anticipate that. And I think that led into The Last Jedi, which it's already a tumultuous time for much of the country, for much of the world, exacerbated by social media. And you have these kind of different generations of Star Wars fans coming in and colliding and fighting over each other. And the fact that Disney did not have a coordinated plan and media strategy for that really came back to bite them in the ass.
Well, okay, so you kind of walked it through the steps, but it's like, again, Disney owns both properties, right? So, and I understand your analogy with the radio tower. I get it. But wouldn't Uncle Bob, who just wrote this check to, like, okay, we're going to buy this and you got to get out of this movie, and they do, wouldn't they just be like, all right, Kathleen, I want you to talk to Kevin Feige and just let him explain what they've been doing at Marvel, because that's working. Because in 2015, they're releasing Ant-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And Ant-Man is, again, now if Iron Man was a B, Ant-Man's a C. Like and yet it's very successful. So they're doing something right. Like 2015, it's Avengers Age of Ultron. So it's the second Avengers. So they're already building that. That's like that's the powerhouse. But then they have this C movie, Ant-Man, and it's still raking in some money, know? So they're doing something right? So I understand what you're saying. Like it's almost like they worked in a vacuum and didn't talk. Like if Disney's like, Marvel's doing great, then why don't I like, maybe Bob's like, hey, let's try to replicate that, because they're hiring different directors, they're hiring different writers. It's fine, but it's still somewhat cohesive. That's what Marvel's doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not every director, and it's not the same writer, same director each movie. It's different stories, different directors, but they're still telling this huge kind of story, right?
Yeah.
But so you have a success there. So they're trying to replicate that at Lucasfilm, and it's like, did you guys sit down and talk about your main characters and understand where they're going? And then, so, Last Jedi blows up in everybody's face. And then obviously The Rise of Skywalker left a little bit on the table. Let's just put it that.
Yeah.
For those not watching the YouTube stream, I'm doing the mightiest of shrugs because I do not know. I'm trying to find some reason here. I am looking through the sheep guts and I'm not finding anything. I don't know. I passed this around the chat. I don't know if Garrick, I might have sent this to you. I'm not sure, because I was just like, this is it. It's like some dude took The Rise of Skywalker, or Rey's like, I'm all the Jedi, and he put in the Force Ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we literally see the Force Ghosts. Like, okay, you got all these actors, and they do these, they say these lines. You're like, oh, I think that was Ahsoka, and I think this is like, all these people. And you're like, oh, that's Qui-Gon Jinn. But you have to, but you only hear it, and you don't see it, And then she shows up, she's finally taking up the Emperor, and she's like, I'm all the Jedi. I'm like, that's when the Jedi Force Ghost should have showed up, And so this guy does this edit, and it's like legit, so cool. And I'm like crying. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And yet some dude with Photoshop does this, and they can't do this. Right. And it, even with, like, you have the music, you have the scene, you have all those things, and you forget one important little ingredient, like, hey, maybe we should show the characters that everybody cares about. You got Yoda, you got Obi-Wan, you got Anakin, you got Qui-Gon, you got all the Jedi, right behind her. And it's like, yeah, that would have been a really cool, like, milestone moment. And it would have, like, kind of saved the sequel, like the sequel trilogy, in a sense where, sometimes it's not how you begin, but how you finish. And if you finish strong, you're like, okay, well, it kind of like sugarcoats a little bit of the flaws of that movie and possibly Last Jedi. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. It's a mystery.
It just seemed that watching those movies when they happened and stuff, after all of them, it almost seemed like they were trying too hard. Whereas the Marvel movies, like Robert Downey Jr. isn't trying in any of the movies. He's playing himself, basically, which is well known. But it's like, Marvel, it's the movie itself. People making the movies, they're not trying hard. They're just like, Iron Man, go be Iron Man. And then all the other ones, Captain America and Thor, like, I don't know, they cast the perfect people. They have great stories and progressions throughout the stories. Whereas Star Wars, it's like, you have 3 movies to make the biggest impact in the world. Now go do it and don't plan. Now you have 10 minutes, like the ACT for making movies. But like, why are you doing it that way? Just take your time, get it right.
I don't know.
So yeah,
I mean,
tried way too hard.
Yeah, like one of the things that like really concern me, and like it's on the behind the scenes. You can watch it on, it's like the behind the scene documentary for The Rise of Skywalker, and they're talking about determining Rey's parentage while they're filming. They haven't even determined that, and this is on the official like Star Wars behind the scenes. You're like, shouldn't you got that like again, like I mean, I'm not a writer. Let's just put that out there. But if you're going to write, we've all wrote like papers in college and high school and whatever. And sometimes you're like, okay, I gotta make a 10,000 word paper or whatever. But you gotta like, I need to talk about these 4 things, and I'm gonna go research them and try to find them out. But I got these 4 things I'm trying to get across. Like that's like your main thing. And it's like, they're like, okay, we need a girl and she's going to be a nobody. Great. And then they're like, okay. And then they made the movie, but then they're like, she's going to land here. And this guy's Han's son, but he's going to land here. Like they just didn't, I don't know, man. It's a mystery that maybe like 40 years from now, we'll get the real story, but I don't know even then if there is such a story.
Yeah, and going back to comparing that with Marvel, it's like Marvel knew every step they were taking probably years in advance, many years in advance, and it just like it all just worked seamlessly. Where Star Wars like, oh, I guess we don't really know what we're doing, and it blew up in their face.
As we kind of wrap this up, I think one of the other things that's very interesting too, as before obviously COVID and stuff like this, but like Marvel would go to San Diego Comic-Con and they would come on stage and they would say, here's the next 5 movies and here's the cast. And they all come on stage. You're like, oh, okay, this is going to be Black Panther. And like you're like, Black Panther. Okay. And then you're like, bring on all these people. And you're like, oh my gosh, they got, this person and like marquee names. And you're just like, yes. And then like Star Wars, they were like, oh, we hired this director, but then we fired him and this other guy showed up. And it's like, they never could like, I think that was the other thing with not only like the casual fan, but like the core people that are going to it, like a San Diego Comic-Con. Those are the geeks of the geeks, nerds of the nerds. These are all the. But they literally put it on the screen, like one screen. Here's all the movies, and I don't think we ever totally got that until that D23 when they start announcing these 10 new projects. Mm-hmm. Like we get, they're getting Bad Batch, and we're getting Ahsoka, and we're getting, like they start naming all the. You're like, oh, okay, yes. like it took them a while, So like, let's end with this question: like, how do we get the Star Wars fans back?
I think what they're doing is an awesome start to that.
Yeah,
it's probably a process of getting Star Wars back to where it really should be.
Okay,
but Mandalorian was huge in that the first Baby Yoda and just the coolest Mandalorian suit there is. And then that's already obviously number one, and the meme generator of Baby Yoda helps.
Baby Yoda won
there's
the
been many memes shared around with Baby Yoda. But now releasing all these shows is an awesome thing because you hit on all these big fan, all these things that people love about Star Wars. So it's Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and then a bunch of other ones. I can't even think of them off the top of my head, but
like Cassian, Andor.
Because how many people after Rogue One were like, oh, I would love to see a Cassian movie, and they did it instead of years and years of like, oh, I would love to see a Boba Fett show, and no, never. So now here you go. yeah, they're starting to get smart and realize like, oh yeah, maybe we have the resources and the time to plan these things out and make really good TV shows.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I think they're on the right track.
Okay, Aaron.
Well, Todd, there's this thing called Hanlon's razor, which basically says never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by stupidity. And meaning if something doesn't make sense,
deep dives.
I know. Yeah. Showing off my freshly minted college degree.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's
6 months later, Aaron's got no good analogies here.
Basically, if something doesn't make sense to you, it's most likely because someone along the way was stupid, and not that they're deliberately trying to make things awful. And so when I look at kind of, what a flop the past few Star Wars movies have been, and just the effect of that, I try to go into it with that at first. Like, did Disney just make some colossal mistakes along the way? Because it's not for lack of talent that these movies suffered. You have very talented people working on these.
Yes, absolutely.
And yet we're getting the results that we're getting. And so in my cynical mind, I have to entertain the possibility that maybe the best way to explain this is that someone up in Disney management thought, you know what? We can put anything in front of these Star Wars fans and they will watch it. Doesn't matter what it is. We could put it out and they will watch it. We don't need to give this the kind of plan and attention it deserves, because those comic book nerds, they're going to want all their I's dotted and their T's crossed. We can't mess with it that much. I don't know. Maybe that's the kind of attitude that they had at Marvel, where it's the way you described it. It's almost like an election campaign. Like, they have to have a plan for what they want to do, and they have to go around the country and interact with the fans and say, hey, this is what we're doing. We want you on board with this. We want to win your trust. And with that trust will come you buying tickets. And it paid off.
Yes.
They had a plan.
Yep.
They got everybody on board, even people who weren't Marvel fans.
That's
Compare that to the Star Wars strategy, where they were like, we're going to keep this a secret. It'll come out when it comes out. We'll give out little leaks or whatever, but we don't trust you not to run wild with it. We don't trust you not to, jump to wild conclusions about it. We don't trust you even to know. We don't even want you to know that we have a plan for where it's going. So we're not going to trust you with that either. And I think that has a lot to do with this kind of hatred of Star Wars. I don't even think it's hatred of Star Wars so much as it is a hatred for how Star Wars has been treated and how we as fans have been treated, because nobody likes to feel like they're not trusted with something that they love. And rather, if they took the approach to say, okay, we need to earn your trust. We need to earn that ticket that you're buying from us. Let's go the extra mile to explain this is what our plan is. This is what we want to do. Right. We want to get you excited and on board, not just excited in an empty kind of hype inflating way, but excited in a genuine, like, yes, you are excited about where we're taking this just as much as we are. And I think you have some parts of the Star Wars fandom where it's like that, particularly everything that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have done with their series, because I think there's a genuine love there. And maybe it's just Jon Favreau as a guy, as just his character and who he is. Maybe it's his time spent with Marvel, but it really did feel like with The Mandalorian that they were trying to earn everybody's trust back. That might explain it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, because they're
totally off base.
Right. So obviously with George, he was always constantly pushing technology, and he was, and some of his stories tight. I mean, obviously there could be question marks, but still he had a story in mind and a vision, and I think that's where Mandalorian, for the casual fan as well as the hardcore fan, is like, this dude really loves Star Wars. And it's literally like him and Dave Filoni are like playing action figures in real life, but they're also pushing technology to where now every movie now is using the volume. They're like, oh, they did that, and now we're gonna do that. And it's making like movies better now and cheaper based on all the restrictions we've had with COVID and going to locations. And because that's what you would do. You would, send all these people to do like a 2-day shoot in some crazy jungle somewhere and then bring them all back. And you're like, oh, we could shoot this on a digital thing. It looks real. Put a couple sets here and boom, you're like, you're still in LA, yet it looks really amazing. And John did that. He brought stuff he learned from Jungle Book and all this stuff and Lion King. And he's like, I think we could do this in Star Wars and probably even better. And they nailed it, and I think that's where it proved that not only if you have a good story and you put in like, there's these things that we say, oh, that Mandalorian episode is like a filler, but then it actually leads to something else later down the road. It's like, wait a minute. They're actually telling stories and they're interconnected.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? So I think that's where I think if this goes right and we go back into the theaters with what's the one, Rogue Leader or something, is that the one, I think that's the next film. But like I feel like you have this groundswell from a TV perspective that actually get that casual fan back into the theater and actually like, yeah, I'll go see this movie because they're killing it on Disney Plus and I like what I'm seeing on Disney Plus,
Couldn't say it better myself.
Okay, Garrick, as we wrap, great topic, Garrick. It was I'm glad it came to you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're late. You're late on an MCU, but now Yeah, right.
Yeah. Better
so
late
we've been.
than never.
That's right. We've been asking all our guests this. Obviously, things are a little bit opening up, but how do you find hope in these difficult times?
I would say Jesus and people.
Okay.
Two things that continually give me hope and enjoyment and things to look forward to, and things to give me hope and love in this world. So
yeah,
definitely those two things.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes. Great. All right. Well, stick around. We got to pay some bills, right, Aaron?
Indeed we do. So you can find us on the socials. Heather at Hawk Awesome, Todd at Tizod, Carla at Carla Marie Giac, myself at Aaron Julian, and we're part of the Red 5 Network, Red numeral 5 Network, and of course our own tag at WSTR Media, all one word, all lowercase. You can email us at mailbox@wstrmedia.com. Leave us a voicemail at 630-557-WSTR. That's 630-557-9787. Leave us a message. We'll play it on an upcoming episode. Ain't that sweet? We also have a website, podcast.wstrmedia.com. You can find everything we've ever done on there, including all relevant links. And we are brought to you by Audible. You know why people don't read books anymore? You probably got a shelf full of them, haven't touched them. They're just there to, flex on your own intellectual curiosity that you don't have. Well, I'll tell you why, Todd, people don't read books anymore, because they're lame. Everybody's on Audible, audible.com/WSTR. That's the hip new way to digest books. And guess what? Head on over there, audibletrial.com/WSTR. You can try out this magic for free. 30-day trial includes a free audiobook of your choice, one of over 425,000 titles, and you get 2 free Audible originals. Those change out each month. Those are audiobook experiences you can't get anywhere else but Audible. So audibletrial.com/WSTR. Check it out now. And you can, if you don't like it, you can cancel anytime, no questions asked. You get to keep your book forever. Yes. It's hard to believe, Todd. How are they making money? But they are.
I don't understand this this madness.
I don't get it either. But we are also brought to you by our merch store, store.wstrmedia.com. That's your one-stop shop to cover you or your loved ones head to toe in WSTR merchandise. And we are also on Patreon, patreon.com/WSTR media. That is our most direct way to support the show. And by golly, we love you all, our patrons, Jeremy Myers, Scarif Scuttlebutt, Elena Strikes, and Nicholas Schaefer, our do or die patrons that have stuck with us through thick and thin, and we appreciate you. So thank you so much. Go check it out. Patreon.com/WSTR media. We got tons of exclusive content that they're enjoying, but you're not. You know who you are. Don't miss out. All right. Bills are paid. Todd, I think it's time to head on over to Twitter and take out the trash.
All right. Twitter trash compactor. All right. So we got the polls. Here we go. With the not so recent announcement of Dave Filoni's job role, this makes you feel what? Comments welcomed. So we have 4 choices: jumping to hyperspace, he has it where it counts, pass the hydro spanner, or poodoo. So, Garrick, where would you land with the Dave Filoni not so recent news of him becoming the executive creative director?
I don't think I voted in this one, but I would definitely be in jumping to hyperspace for sure.
There you go.
I'm all in, head first. Let's go.
Let's go. All right. Aaron, where would you land?
Oh, Dave, take me with you. Jump into hyperspace, wherever we're going. I don't care. I trust you. Take me away. That's where I'm at.
There you go. Yeah.
Near, far, wherever you are.
I think. Yeah, right. Exactly. I think all the things we just talked about, I think, if with Dave, he studied under George, and, he's kind of like the Padawan becomes the master now. I think it's really exciting. And again, if you have good content and good story and you push the technology envelope a little bit, I think you can definitely, there's more stories to tell in Star Wars. And I think Dave's definitely a good choice there. For our Twitter poll, our results, no one said poodoo, which is very surprising in the Twitterverse. Thank you. Past the hydro spanner. It's kind of seemed like the sequel trilogy was going through an asteroid field, but that also didn't get any choices. So at 38%, we had he has it where it counts, and then a whopping 62% said jumping to hyperspace. So there you go. Twitter is actually behind this as well. That is very, very interesting. So, yeah, excellent. So there you go. All right. That's all the trash. Now it's time for news of the week. All right. So, guys, we just had all this lovely stuff about the Marvel fans and everything, but there might be a tremor in the force with Marvel.
Oh, my God.
Here we go. This was published on May 21st or May 25th. This is coming from piratesandprincesses.net. The Eternals. Excitement flops. Marvel begins to look like Lucasfilm. I was like, this headline wrote itself. We were just talking about this. So if you're not familiar with this, we are embarking on the next phase of Marvel movies, and there's been quite a few delays. And Eternals is one of the new movies that are coming out. And it's just you can read the details of the article. I'm not going to go all the way into it, but it's, basically it goes into saying the trajectory of Marvel movies was much different. Basically, up until Captain America, each film the Marvel Studios put out was generating increased interest. The trend of revenue growth. There were some stinkers like Iron Man 2, but overall was up. And I could say up until Captain America, because the first movie that indicated Kevin Feige was losing his Midas touch. But then, it kind of goes away and everybody's, yeah, we love you. But essentially, what was going on is part of the what the internals are is like, oh, we've been watching, but we haven't done anything. And so there's a lot, the internet didn't like that line and was making a bunch of memes like, oh, where were you when like Thanos snapped his finger and like killed like half the universe? Like, where were you guys at? You know? So there's a lot of there's like, well, what's going on here? You know? So yeah, it's just so there's a bunch of internet memes about the internals and like where were they at, yeah. So but essentially here's a very interesting thing if you go down. So they show this kind of cool graph, and I know it's podcasting, we can't see these things, but essentially it says in this article, it's going into the blue line of interest in Mandalorian and the red line of interest in the Eternals. So they did like a little study of like data collection, Twitter, Twitter retweets, whatever. And Eternals is like flat, like a red line that's flat. And then Mandalorian kind of goes up and it's like it's peaking. There's like a lot of interest. And this is after like a major like trailer launch, So one of the things that even interests me here was over the past few days when they did this, the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 script was partially leaked, guys. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was partially leaked on the internet, and it made some blips. And in the study, the blue line, they do another little thing, and it's like Sonic, the leaked script got more buzz than Eternals. So are we seeing a decline in the Marvel? What's happening here?
Well, Todd, you mentioned that everything was good up until Captain Marvel. And
yes.
I think that ties a little bit into what I was saying earlier, where if you approach things with the attitude like we need to earn our audience's respect and their hard-earned dollars,
yes,
I think that kind of goodwill will go a long way. And
yep.
Captain Marvel, I don't want to get too into it, but it had its own kind of controversy spring up around kind of the press junkets before the movie came out, and part of what was in the movie as well. And I think part of it was just kind of having a naked contempt for your audience, or at least part of your audience. And it turns out that's not a good way to sell a movie. And I'm wondering if part of the reaction to that is what's being felt towards Eternals in one way or another.
Garrick, what's your thoughts there?
I don't know too much about Eternals, and maybe that's a perfect example of how it's not generating a lot of interest.
Right.
It looks really cool, but yeah, I'm just not hearing a lot about it. And for Sonic the Hedgehog movie to pass it, doesn't look good. No
right.
offense to Sonic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, again, I don't want to just unpack what we just talked about, but like we didn't know a lot about these characters in Marvel, and yet we went, and now we're at Eternals, and these are people that you would really have to look for to find out like who the heck they are. Like, and maybe that's it, where we're at the point where like, okay, we're not even talking ABC, we're like at E or F range of characters, and maybe they're going too deep in the well that from a casual like, so wait, there's these gods that just watched everything happen that we just experienced, and now they're going to show up and try to help us out. Maybe that's part of where you're getting that kind of meme stuff, like, oh, you're just going on vacation when Thanos snapped his finger, or Iron Man needed some help, or whatever, or Cap or something. And so maybe that's it. I don't know. It's for quite so long, Marvel could not do any wrong. So maybe it's just like too deep in the character well with these couple.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big test because
I mean,
it's
guys,
the
we
first
like
big
the
thing.
talking tree. Yeah, we like the talking tree and the talking raccoon. So, I mean, I don't know. I think there's you can definitely stretch it a little bit, and I don't know. It's interesting. I think it's more or less maybe we have to see a little bit more to understand.
I think it is that because
Yeah.
I think going back to Mandalorian, Mandalorian was hyped up, but I feel like a lot of people were skeptical. Whereas after you watch, or then once you watch the first bunch of episodes, you're like, okay, yeah. And then especially once the first season was over, you're like, okay, I'm in. But you needed to see it first. You couldn't.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Immediately, you needed to see some bit. So, yeah, I think after a few episodes, maybe it'll become a huge hit. So,
yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, we have this from WeGotThisCovered.com. New Star Wars game will reportedly let you play as an evil Sith. What?
dang.
What is this? Star Wars fans tired of playing as the good guys in the most recent video games adaptations of the franchise can be in luck. According to the latest details shared in the industry insider Daniel Richmond, Lucasfilm is currently working on a title set in the galaxy far, far away, which will have gamers fill the shoes of a Sith. Whether this alludes to character in question being a Sith Lord, a la Emperor Palpatine, or apprentice Darth Vader, Maul, Dooku, etc., unfortunately, it isn't clear. It doesn't provide any information beyond that already covered, but we're willing to bet later is more likely, if only to make for a better fit as far as gameplay and design progression systems are concerned. What do you guys think of playing a Sith character?
That'd be pretty sick.
It would. I have opinions, Todd. I would very much like this.
Yes.
We've not been able to play as a Sith since Force Unleashed.
Yeah.
To some extent, Knights of the Old Republic would let you do that as far as the choices that you make, but you didn't start out as one. And for a long time, Star Wars video games are more or less balanced in that you could choose either the light side or dark side, and they kind of both were able to be choices for you. So yeah, it'd be nice. Why not?
Well, I hate to bring up another bad subject, but EA. So you have Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2 is marketed. You are going to be an Imperial and you're going to be a bad guy. And then you're like, yeah, because Battlefront, the original Battlefront, they had to make a date and they forgot something. They forgot a single player game. And so they just put out multiplayer. And so Battlefront 2 is like, hey guys, we heard your feedback. Yeah, we just shipped out this game and slapped some Star Wars on it. And it was good, but it didn't have that single player experience. And so we spent a lot of time and we got this really tight story for you. And everybody's like, yeah, great, awesome. And you get to be a bad guy. And then halfway through the game, she changes into a good guy.
Oh my God.
We got bamboozled.
Yeah.
I can bamboozle.
We were cheated.
Yeah. So the idea of a progression system, Jedi Fallen Order was a fantastic game. It progressed, and it would be cool to get the flippy flop, and you get somebody that is trying to be a Dark Lord of the Sith and be like a bad guy, and that would be kind of cool. And somehow we always gravitate. I mean, obviously it pays better to be good, but sometimes it'd be nice to be the bad guy. Maybe they'll make those choices. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think people that play video games would love to be the bad guy. Just looking at the popularity of GTA.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Probably the worst human being in the world as anyone in GTA, and they love it. So being a Sith is not that bad.
Right. Yeah.
We all like to be bad once in a while, and video games are a fun, safe way to explore that. So why not?
That's right.
And The
Yeah,
Sith
I mean,
are only
you're
bad from a certain point of view.
Oh, of course.
right, exactly. But you kind of bring up a good point. Like, there is a fantasy element to playing video games, and obviously they're building this now. It's so complex. They're building this whole world, and they have the ability to have that kind of choice to do things is very liberating to to video gamers, and that's why we like these and why we play them, because I am not going to be a Jedi Knight and be able to do all these things, nor would I be able to be a Sith Lord. But if I could have that ability to do that, that would be great, And I think that's why some people still hang on to Knights of the Old Republic, is because you have a lot of choices and you could do different things. And if you give a player choices, that allows them to do, make their own choices, and that's great. So
yeah, and there's a lot of cases of the bad guy is always cooler, so why not let me be the bad guy?
Maybe it's just because we're guys.
Right.
Yeah,
maybe. Oh man. Okay, and then finally, this is coming from cinemablend.com. Star Wars. Mark Hamill has the best response to scientists finding a fossilized claw. Okay, I don't know if you've been hiding under a rock, but Mark Hamill is he is an ambassador on Twitter. He says a lot of funny things, and he has very strong opinions, like everybody else on Twitter. But a group of scientists recently discovered a 3,000-year-old claw of a non-extinct bird, or now extinct. Yeah, it's now extinct. I'm sorry. Yes, it is extinct. And Mark Hamill could not help himself. The Star Wars icon clearly waits for opportunities to create a perfect response because his message is fantastic. So this is coming from Museum Archive, and it says a group of archaeologists discovered this 3,300-year-old claw of a now extinct bird called moa, and the flesh and muscles are still attached. And this is what Mark Hamill says. Excuse me, but I recognize a Rancor's hand when I see one. And the internet loved it. What do you guys think of this claw? It kind of does look like a Rancor, if you know.
It looks pretty Rancor-esque, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe after
Pretty
a couple
cool.
beers. Yeah, if you squint a little bit.
Yeah.
No, it does have a passing resemblance to one, so I could see it. But
Yeah.
Baby Rancor.
I don't think this was a recent discovery, because I recall seeing that image like years ago. So I don't think it just popped up, but someone just posted it that Mark Hamill saw it now. So I'm not that upset.
Yeah.
But I'm nitpicking here. But
yeah,
it does kind of have this kind of reptilian kind of look to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, no, the post for at least this Artifacts Hub maybe was discovered, but they dropped it on May 25th, and so that's when Mark Hamill replied. So it was recent, but maybe the discovery was not as recent. Sometimes these things in the internet, they kind of swirl, even though they're old news.
Yeah, that's fair. People are rediscovering stuff all the time.
Right. Hey, I just found this headline out like 10 years ago. Oh, okay. And so he retweets it. Another person retweets it. And it's like, how did this become modern news? I don't know. Such things are in a swirl. All right. Well, that's all the news I have. Aaron, it's time for your favorite part.
Cantina Chat. All right, the part of the show where we talk about all things geeky and weird with us. Todd, step right up to the microphone. What have you been up to?
I haven't left the microphone, but I will tell you. So last week, speaking about old movies, I mean, A New Hope celebrated 44 years, and Return of the Jedi was 38. So I ordered on May the 4th, I ordered like the 4K versions of the original trilogy because they're really cheap. I'm like, well, you got me one more time. Here we go. I'm buying another version of Star Wars, but I need it in 4K because I have my new 4K TV. And so But
That's how they get you.
Return of the Jedi, even though I bought it on May the 4th, it was like stuck. Like I think they like Amazon oversold it, and it just like wasn't in stock. And it literally came the night before. No, it was like May 24th. I was like,
oh wow.
Okay, well, I'm gonna watch it tomorrow. And so that's what I did. I watched Return of the Jedi. So it was always fun to see it in 4K now, which is great. So that was awesome. Speaking about like crazy bird claws and stuff like that. What season 3? I mentioned this last week. Season 3 of Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous dropped on Netflix, and it's a kids show, but it's so good. It's like you got to watch this. It's really good. And so there was 10. I think it's 10 episodes, and so Trent and I we watched the first 4. I'm like, hey, let's slow the roll. We're not going to watch them all. But then the next week we watched the 6 of them because we couldn't stop watching them, and it's really good. So if you're looking for, you still like some dinosaurs and you want to learn a little bit more about Jurassic World, go check out Camp Cretaceous. It's a lot of fun. And then I recently started watching this weekend. Started watching season 3 of Westworld, and it reminds me, it's just enough. Like it's super sci-fi and like what's your reality and all this kind of stuff. And I just dig it. It reminds me very much like of Blade Runner, and just like this season is more about where the first 2 seasons are more about kind of like this place where you kind of go to, you live your fantasies as a cowboy. And then the second season is more about like the samurai, and this is more about the people. This season 3 is starting off more about the people, like what's behind all of it, and it's super fascinating, and it's super heavy in the head. And I'm like, yeah, I can get deep into this. So I was in that headspace this weekend, so it's a lot of fun. So
awesome.
That was me. Garrick, how about you? Do you do anything geeky?
All the time.
Right answer.
Yeah, I've been watching Clone Wars. So I haven't watched any Bad Batch because I'm trying to catch up with Clone Wars, and in preparation for the Ahsoka series also. I'm so close to the final season, and I can't.
Where are you in season 6 or 5?
I am. Yeah, I've jumped around and tried to hit really just the Ahsoka storylines and then like the Maul storylines.
Yes.
So I skipped a lot of there's a lot of clone stuff that I knew was probably good to watch for Bad Batch. So I was like, I just want to hit Ahsoka stuff.
Yeah.
And just get to the final season. So I'm pretty close. But I can't wait to be there. But it is really good. So the last bit I saw was like Ahsoka got or she declined to come back into the Jedi Order.
Yeah. Tough one.
Yeah, so I've seen images and maybe little snapshots, I guess, of the final season, and I can't wait to see it.
Well, you're in a treat for season 6 and 7. I'll tell you that. It's yeah, they're good.
I'm pumped for that.
Yeah.
So over the summer, I'm sure I'll finish it though. So
we'll get to it. You need a plan. Write it down.
Yes.
And don't snooze on the Domino Squad stuff. You'll wanna go back and watch those episodes.
Oh yes, I figured I would. I didn't want to like do the Ahsoka storyline, get through that, and then I have plenty of time to go back and watch all those other episodes. So
might want to watch those before season 7. Let me just put it that way.
Okay. See, Aaron's coming off fresh of it too, so he's coming off fresh. He was behind the ball too. It was like.
That's fine. I'm down to watch more stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
Anything else there, Garrick?
Not really. No.
Okay.
I think just that. Yeah. Just Clone Wars.
All right. Awesome. Aaron, how about you?
Oh man. So the other day, I told my roommate, hey, let's watch The Rocketeer because it's one of my favorite movies that nobody knows about. And he's never seen.
Right.
So he's like, okay, I'll watch The Rocketeer, but then you have to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with me. I'm like, okay. That's one of his favorite movies that I've never seen. So we had a double
You've
header.
never seen Turtles?
No.
Wait, like which Turtles? Which one?
The 1990 one.
Oh,
Yes.
I've never seen that either.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I would highly
10.
recommend it. It was a lot of fun. Something about the Turtles never really clicked with me, and I still don't think it has. It's just not my thing. But
Right. Yeah.
the movie was great. It told me everything I needed to know, introduced me to all the different characters, and it's a well-made film. It made me care about them a little bit. So it was enjoyable. I liked it. And he liked The Rocketeer as well.
Okay.
Scratches different itches, of course, but
yeah.
And then I wanted to show this off. Heather sent me something.
Okay.
I don't know if we'll get this on camera very well.
But it is a gosh.
knitted framed like lineup of all the Knights of the Old Republic characters.
Wow.
She made this, guys.
She made that?
Yeah.
With her hands?
Yeah, she cross-stitched this whole thing, framed it, and sent it to me as a graduation gift. So thank you so much, Heather.
And it kind of has, like, because it's cross-stitch, it almost has that, like, 8-bit feel.
Yeah, it does.
And it looks amazing.
Yeah, it looks like an 8-bit adventure or a 16-bit adventure game. So
yes.
I got to figure out where to hang this thing, but and that's part of a wider conversation I need to have with myself about like soundproofing and rearranging the room where I podcast from. So stay tuned for that. But thank you so much, Heather.
That's amazing.
And then finally, my roommate and I, we hatched this harebrained scheme over Memorial Day where we decided we have an 80s themed like living room for our apartment. We decided to just go all out on it. So best way to do that for the cheap was we basically spent all afternoon finding like high resolution movie posters from the 80s, album covers, video game art, stuff like that. Just everything we could throw into the bin. Then printed it all out at FedEx and like hung it up on the wall. We're taking the Portillo's approach to interior design, where it's just like get a bunch of memorabilia, just stick it everywhere. And
Mr. Krabs.
It's really cool. Yeah. The Mr. Krabs approach. So it looks awesome. We have a
well, you have to take a picture so we can put it on the socials there.
I will. So it's we're no longer plagued by blank white walls in our apartment, but now actually
you just
have
threw
cool
you like
stuff on
picture
there.
frame, poster.
Yeah. And sometimes we found like alternate movie posters or like international versions that are better than the original, and so it's a good hodgepodge of 80s stuff there. So
that's awesome.
That's what I've been up to. Oh, also Rebels. We finished season 1, so I'm happy about that.
Wow. Garrick, have you watched Rebels?
I think I've seen like the first or second episode. And that's another thing where like I've seen little bits. And I'm intrigued. So I'll get to that eventually.
Yeah, it's good.
It seems good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think season 1 builds too. It also builds. I think it gets better as it progresses.
Mm-hmm.
And then it season like where I think Clone Wars really kind of struggles a little bit in the first 2 seasons, and it doesn't really pick up steam till like season 3, where I feel like because Rebels is also very shorter. It's very concentrated. They're very tight stories, so it wasn't like, oh, we have all this filler. It's pretty concrete, so a little slow at the beginning, but then it does really pick up, I feel, right away.
Rebels and then Clone Wars as well was like something I didn't know where to find it, and I didn't really know it was even happening when it was coming out, like when it was coming out live. That kind of ties into our main topic with Mark, like these cool shows, and like they're so kind of pushed away, like you don't even know where they are. But
that's
so
true.
now I'm backtracking and catching those now.
And I think again that kind of goes back to Disney Plus, where it's like, because now you have that access, now you could see that content that was exclusively like Rebels. I never saw Rebels live because it was like on Disney
XD,
whatever, XD. I'm like,
Disney
I don't have Disney XD. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to watch, I'm just not going to watch it. I had to wait till the DVDs came out or Blu-rays, and then I got them, and then I watched them. But now that, again, you have a little bit more access to the library, it like makes it easier to be like, okay, I can watch these, So. Cool. All right. Well, there you go. I think we're good with Cantina Chat, right, Aaron?
Yeah. So it's about time to wrap up the episode. So thanks again for listening to another exciting edition of WSTR Galactic Public Access. You can check us out on social media, WSTR Media, all one word, all lowercase. We want to hear from you. Give us a 5-star rating on the old iTunes. We'll throw some swag right into your face. So open wide. Drop us an email at mailbox@wstrmedia.com. Leave us a voicemail at 630-557-WSTR. That's 630-557-9787. Leave us a voicemail. Keep it safe for work, and we can play it on the next episode. You can catch our entire back catalog of episodes at podcast.wstrmedia.com. And check out our merch store, store.wstrmedia.com. And our Patreon, patreon.com/WSTRmedia. We're part of the Red 5 network, and it is a great, fun family of Star Wars podcasts out there. Thanks, Ro, for having me on last week. Check out at Red 5 Network and our website, www.red5network.com, for all the updates and shenanigans. And thank you, everybody in the YouTube land, for hanging out with us in the YouTube chat. Once again, we stream every Monday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time-ish.
Ish.
And that's about all we have for us. Where can people find you, Garrick? Are you hanging out on the socials? Are you on the fringe? Are you
I have the socials. Sort of off the grid. I have the socials, but don't really use them a lot. So I wouldn't say I'm really on the grid.
All right.
So,
Well, you could be like Aaron and like post like every year,
once a year
or something.
Yeah, it's kind of that. I share little funny videos. I use it to send videos mainly to other people. So
yeah. There you go. Well, as you ride off into the sunset, maybe far down the line, you'll be able to pop up on WSTR again one day.
Yeah,
and people will get another taste of the Garrick experience.
Yeah, everyone wants that.
That's why we got you on. All right. We're still on the road to 3,500 Twitter followers. Please help us get there. We've got more prizes yet to give away, but they're not going to be given away until we get to 3,500. Next week, episode 223. Grab your fedora, grab your whip. Is it time to go to the dungeon? No, it's time to go across the universe. And we're going to be celebrating Indiana Jones' 40th anniversary. So tune in next week. Don't miss that. All right. Friends.
40 years. Another franchise.
Yes.
In the 40th. That is crazy.
Absolutely. Friends, family, compatriots. Only one way to end this episode. Now this is podcasting. Star Wars fan.
They call me Hell, they call me Stacy, they call me Her, they call me Jane. They call me